And we're live. How's everybody doing? So, to put it lightly, shit has escalated. By nobody's surprise, we've kind of seen this coming the past few weeks. Um, we've been waiting for an Iranian retaliation, I guess, ever since Israel successfully assassinated Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian territory. I personally was surprised by the lack of response. And let's make it clear, I'm not happy by the response. I'm not happy at any escalation. I've been wanting to de-escalate for since October 7th, let's say. Um, Actually, since October 6th. Let's say that should have been the day of de-escalation. But I also try to be realistic and see the power dynamics and the incentives and motivations of both sides. And Iran and Hezbollah have been continuously humiliated the past few weeks. So we knew an attack was coming at some point. Now, it took many weeks to come. I think Haniyeh was assassinated over a month ago. So in my mind, I thought one of two things. Either Iran is showing great restraint because they don't want regional escalation, and that may have been the case, or they're just a paper tiger. They're not really as strong as we thought. But it seems after decimating Hezbollah leadership and killing Nasrallah, that was the final straw because they finally responded by shooting at least 180 ballistic missiles at Israel. And before going deeper into this analysis, I want to make it clear we still don't have all the information. There's a lot we don't know. We'll have a lot more information tomorrow as the dust settles and as we can get a better understanding of exactly what went down. But it seems at least 180 ballistic missiles were shot at Israel from Iran. We don't know how many were intercepted, but we know dozens hit. Thankfully, we have only one civilian casualty. It is a Palestinian from Jericho in the West Bank, which on one hand is tragic, on the other hand is quite ironic that that's the one casualty. Now, there's a few ways to look at this. If you're a religious folk, you might say, God must be protecting Israel. No Jews were killed. That's generally not how I'm looking at things. I think most would agree. One could say, on one hand, I think it's very lucky that the casualty count is so low. But it seems from the limited information we currently have, and we're going to have Shaiel Ben Ephraim on soon to give his opinion. I'm sure he'll see things slightly differently. But it seems from what we currently know that the primary targets were actually military bases. We know a lot of the missiles that hit were by Nevatim. Some were by Glilot, which is in central Israel in between Tel Aviv and Herzliya. There's some bases there. We don't know if the Kiryat, which is Israel's central base, which is in Tel Aviv, we don't know if that was targeted. And some were shot at Dimona, which is where Israel's nuclear reactor is. So it seems primarily military targets were shot at. We don't know how many were hit. Now, this is clearly an escalation, right? Israel will not let this just slide. There will be a response. But it's interesting because many on the Israeli side are saying their attack was a failure, but I actually don't see it that way. Iran proved something that they kind of gave us a little hint of this on their last attack. They show that they have the capabilities of striking Israel and that our missile defense systems, whether it's the Iron Dome, the Patriot missile, and the Arrow, cannot stop. I think when it comes to the ballistic missiles, we're talking specifically about the Arrow. They don't have the capabilities to stop this amount of ballistic missiles. So if we are ever at full-out war, we know that Iran and Hezbollah together have the capabilities of hitting populated areas and causing major harm to civilians. I don't think that was their intention this time. Again, we don't have all the information, but it shows that they do have the capabilities, which is yet another reason why we should understand that the only way to ensure our safety on the land is through peace. Yeah, we're strong. Yeah, we humiliated Hezbollah. We had a major military and intelligence feats the past few weeks. But does that move the needle? Nasrallah was replaced. The leadership was replaced. I'm not convinced it moves the needle. I know it's a good moral victory for us. It makes us feel strong, makes us feel good. But we're now closer to all-out regional war. And we see that our enemies, their capabilities are getting better as the years go by. So yeah, we could continue down the path of showing strength and creating deterrent. Or we could understand that the only way towards true security is through peace. Now, obviously, this is easier said than done, right? We need a partner for peace. That's true. Well, we could create a partner. We could work with the international community, with regional partners. I think we're better poised now than maybe ever before to change the status quo in the Middle East. I'm not saying that there's never a need to show military force, but I want us to remember something very important. The only guarantee for security in the land of Israel for Jews is through finding a way toward a long-term solution, not this continuous escalation. Now, it's interesting how you'll see, first of all, there's a lot of misinformation on Twitter. Be very skeptical with what you see. I would suggest Tal Hagen's account. He's a friend and a frequent on this channel. He debunks a lot of claims. I'm going to drop a link to his account in the chat. And I would also suggest Shaiel Ben Ephraim, who's going to join us very soon. He doesn't do as much debunking, just more so honest reporting and some commentary. I'm sharing both their accounts. So don't believe everything you see on Twitter. Try to get it fact checked. But you are seeing a lot of accounts on Twitter saying, okay, Israel needs to respond. We have no choice, right? But we've been hearing people saying this about Iran and Hezbollah for weeks. Iran has to respond. You'll always find a reason why one side needs to respond. But maybe it's time to start de-escalating. Maybe we don't want this to turn into a full out regional escalation, risking a world war. And you all know I'm not a fearmonger. I don't think the chance of a world war is that high, but we're certainly closer than we were yesterday. And we've been inching closer every single day. And if you say, and I want you to question yourself, if you say now that Israel needs to respond, but you don't think that Iran had to respond after we assassinated Hanei on their territory, I'm not sure you're really an objective voice on this matter. It's likely that you're seeing this through a very skewed lens, so worth reflecting on. Anyways, I'm happy to take a few questions. We are going to get Shaiel on, but those are just my opening remarks. We should know more in the upcoming hours, at what Israel's response will be. There certainly will be one. They already said there will be. And we still don't know the extent of the damage. So let's see. So BCFH Ireland is saying the airbase in the, hold on one second. Hold on, let me read that. The airbase in the south is reported destroyed. Gas fields on Haifa coast. Mossad HQ hit. Yeah, BCFC Ireland. None of this is actually confirmed yet. Gallant is not confirmed dead. We'll need to wait. We'll need to wait 12 to 24 hours, and we'll know if all of this is true. This is being spread by propaganda accounts. It's actually quite likely that everything you mentioned is not true, and it's possible some of it is true, but there's really been zero confirmation in any of those. Or is saying Iran already uses around 20% of their ballistic missiles according to their high-end numbers. Can you send a source for that? Because I'm not sure. And if this source is like Israel or something, then I'm not even interested in entertaining it. I'm like if there's an objective source, then I'm happy to read that out. Evan Magor says, but Israel is not the aggressor. It was attacked by two countries, and it's just saying stop firing rockets at us or we will respond. It's not that simple. That's not what it's saying. Israel on many occasions has upped the ante and escalated by doing major attacks and by responding more aggressively. Um, it's not, it hasn't been just stop and we'll stop. Hezbollah is saying something similar, like just end the war in Gaza and we'll stop. It's been very much tit for tat since October 7th with Hezbollah. But when we actually look at the numbers, we've killed far more Lebanese civilians than they've killed Israeli civilians. Not even close, not even comparable. Orders of magnitude more. We've done attacks deeper into their territory. We've killed a lot more of their civilians. So it's true. It's true. And I say this to those accounts that saying, oh, look at Israel attacking Hezbollah unprovoked. No, that's also bullshit, right? Because Hezbollah on October 8th started shooting rockets on Israel. That's true. They definitely involved themselves in this. But this is something that I hear a lot. It's not that the second you get attacked, everything you therefore do is then therefore okay. Like sovereign nations, especially ones that are part of the Western world and that are supported by the West, should be held to a standard and have responsibility. So like October 7th was absolutely horrific. Israel has a right to do something about it. That doesn't mean that everything Israel does in response is therefore okay and can't be condemned, right? Like that's just not a mature way to look at things. And we don't think that's true in any like interpersonal relationship. So like, for example, if someone, you're walking down the street and somebody shoves you and then you pull out a gun and shoot them, it's like, oh, well, they shoved me. Like, no, nobody thinks that that's a logical argument. But when it comes to countries, for some reason, we're like, yeah, that makes sense, right? They attacked. So this is just us responding. No, there's near infinite different ways to respond. Some, and we can debate what the right response is, but it's not like all forms of response are equally okay. Let's see. John Aguilar saying people have likened. Wait, let me. Okay. Hold on one second. Just want to make sure Shell's joining. Anyways, sorry if I seem a little tired, guys. I was not planning on doing a stream. I'm definitely not high energy right now, but duty calls, right? So John goes, people have likened Mossad, the Kiryat, and other military bases in metropolitan to Hamas Hezbollah tactics of using human shields. Wondering if you can share your take. Yeah, I don't look. I think the claims of human shields is probably overblown on both sides, but the Kiryat, like having a base in Tel Aviv, is not human shields. If Israel were to, if you have precision missiles or an airstrike, you could destroy the Kiryat without killing a single civilian. A human shield situation would be if Israel would have some kind of a military base or bunker inside a civilian building, and there would be no way to strike you without killing civilians. Right? These are clearly not the same thing. So no, I just don't buy that. Now, I do think like I think on the other side, I think Israel also overuses the claim of human shields because I think if we look at the civilian infrastructure destroyed in Gaza, it's not that all of that was used by Hamas. You've had over 300,000 buildings destroyed or damaged, and you have 30,000 Hamas militants. Like, think about the scale of the infrastructural damage compared to how many militants you have. It's, and I'm going to do a full report on the extent of the destruction in Gaza, but it's more so that you have tunnels underneath Gaza. You don't know where the exits of these tunnels are. So instead of going home to home, which is very costly for soldiers, you're just going to level full neighborhoods. I think it's just a safer strategy, one that very much is questionable and not in accordance with international law, but that is how Israel is looking at it. They're saying, look, we're not going to go house to house. We're not going to risk our soldiers to find all these tunnels. So we're just going to do massive infrastructural damage. I think that's what we're seeing. I've seen the video of Nevatim base being hit by 15 or so missiles. Granted, the rest is just being reported. BCF Ireland, can you please send that video? Because there are some videos, but I'm not sure I saw any specifically hitting a base. There is a video of the Palestinian being killed. It's pretty horrific. He just gets hit by, not like a live rocket, but by the shell. It just falls in it. Or it goes, the claim of air bases destroyed comes from pro-regime Telegram propaganda channels. That is true. That's where they're coming from. Mr. Gandalf says, you can't imagine how much I respect how objective Adar is. It's very hard. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. I'm doing my best, despite not being perfect. U.S. Central Command's General Kenneth McKenzie estimates. No, I struggle with any U.S. report on something like that. They don't have a history of objectivity. Although, hold on, let me challenge myself, because I don't. What incentive would they have to lie on the amount of ballistic missiles Iran has? Okay, yeah, potentially. I just don't like U.S. military often reports things that are convenient for whatever narrative they're trying to spin. You know, we saw this with WMDs in Iraq. It's pretty consistent. It's this idea of being able to manufacture consent for whatever narrative you're trying to push. Although this, I don't see what incentive they have to lie. So this very well, may be true. And if that's true, then okay, 20% of their stockpile has been destroyed. So the only death from Iranian Fafullah, is it true that the only death from Iranian attack so far is a Palestinian? Yes, that is true as far as we know. Cool. We have Shaiel here. We're going to bring Shaiel on. Shaiel, how are you? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Shaiel, good to have you. You're currently in Palestine now, right?
That's a very harsh way to describe Hollywood.
Oh, you're back. Okay. I was trying to be edgy and offensive. So you're back in Hollywood.
You're even more edgy than you expected. You just incorporated California into Palestine.
Hey, from the river to the sea being exactly. The Pacific, the Mississippi River to the Pacific. Anyways, let us know what's on your mind. I'm glad you're out of there, although I'm sure you kind of feel like me that you kind of wish you were close to friends and family during this time. I gave some commentary, but I'm sure you'll have a different take on it.
Well, we have the exact same views on everything. Yeah, I do prefer being there when there's moments of crisis. Obviously, there's limits to that. You don't necessarily want to get injured or killed or anything like that, but it feels weird to be far away when Israel's in crisis. It always does. But people were more concerned about the shooting in Jaffa than they were about the missiles. That was much more deadly, and that's the kind of thing people can't prepare for.
True. What's that? 10 killed and or 6 killed, 10 injured, many in serious condition.
7 killed last time I saw.
Okay.
Yeah, and
these were Hamas members. I saw from your Twitter, which I shared here, by the way, for people to see. But I saw that on your Twitter, they were confirmed to be Hamas from the West Bank. Is that what it was?
Hamas members from Hebron. Yeah.
Okay.
And they were carrying standard issue IDF M16s, or at least one was, and that's very concerning. For 2 reasons. One is, where did they get them? We can probably guess it was someone from the army sold them. There's been some cases of that. Yeah. But perhaps more important, there's been some changes in gun control in Israel. Some of them are because of Ben Gvir and so on and so forth. So it's much more acceptable now for people who are not in their uniform to wander around armed to the teeth. I saw, it's not, they used to have those sometimes, but now you see a lot of them, when I was there. And so a guy walking around with an M16, no one's even batting an eye. And that allows terrorists to just go around and shoot people up. This might be a loophole that they found in Israeli security. And it's killed a lot more people than all those missiles that Iran shot.
Right. It just goes to show. So Orr is saying that they were stolen from an army soldier in a train after stabbing him. Have you seen reports on that?
No, I haven't seen that. That doesn't mean it's not true. I've been following the Iran stuff very closely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are reporting things as they're coming out, so we still don't have all the information. Okay, interesting. So yeah,
that's better than if someone sold it to them, because we've had a lot of problems with that. We've had people selling arms to terrorists. So stabbing and taking that's less something that you can repeat. That's harder to do.
True.
So hopefully, hopefully that's what happened.
Yep. Okay. And when it comes to Iran, like my take on it, on one hand, I feel very lucky that there's only been one civilian casualty. On the other hand, they have proven inability to hit with dozens and dozens of ballistic missiles. It seems like they were targeting primarily areas where there are military bases, but it's clearly an escalation, but also just a sign that if they want to, they can hit Israel, any part of Israel.
Well, they can shoot at any part of Israel. What we haven't seen from Iran is any evidence that they can cause serious damage with their missiles. That leads to a philosophical question of, well, what are they trying to do with these attacks?
Right.
Are they trying to have a moral victory of some sort, or are they trying to hurt Israel as much as possible? And I think, based on my analysis and what I'm hearing, they're not shooting everything at Israel, but I think a lot of that is because Iran's biggest nightmare, as far as I can tell, is that they try everything they can to hit Israel and it doesn't work. Their biggest concern right now, I think, is not so much that Israel harms them as much as that Israel humiliates them. Because we're getting to a point where Israel is hurting them so much, and they're hurting Israel so little. They're losing a lot of prestige in the region. And so what they wanted to do is do something where they could try to frame it as a big success without it being a big success, and hope that Israel doesn't throw everything it has at them in response. Because one of the main reasons I think that Iran is keeping things in reserve is because it's concerned about, what happens if I shoot everything I have, it hurts Israel a little bit, and then they hit me 20 times harder.
Right.
Then what happens to my rule in the region? And their power in the region, as we're discovering, is not as well founded as thought. At the end, it's starting to look like, okay, you have a bunch of Shiites with some money from oil. They've bought some influence, but they're a minority. They're not as popular as people say they are. They're not as militarily adept as people say they are. They're actually a lot weaker than we thought. That also leads to Israeli hubris, which we can talk about in a minute. But that's an incredible challenge for them, not so much in terms of Israel, but in terms of Sunni Arabs. Because if Sunni Arabs realize that they're beatable after, several defeats in Syria and in Yemen and in Iraq, realize that they're beatable, that is a strategic disaster for Iran, much more than anything that Israel can do to them. And that's the real danger for Iran right now, is that Israel proves that they're weak.
Right.
And that's happening.
Yeah. I think that's a great take. And to expand on that, I mean, this is kind of what I've been feeling, that it seems like Iran would rather not be involved in direct conflict. Like, why would they want to be? They would rather fund their proxies and have their proxies deal with it. The challenge is, we've kind of just been giving hell to their proxies in a way that makes them feel like they need to do something. And now their back is against the wall. They're like, fuck, we have to respond. But if we respond, we might get hit directly. So if we look at their last attack, where they sent a lot of drones, which were quite easy to shoot down, and this one, it's possible that there's an optics to their attacks. They're beautiful, they look powerful, but like minimal harm. It's possible they're being very strategic to kind of show strength without forcing Israel to need to further escalate things. So it's possible that's their tactic, because what do they gain from really an escalation? They don't want this on their soil. They'd rather continue to, fund their proxies and have their proxies fight Israel. That's been their strategy. And it's not going too well for them. Let's say that.
No, it's not. It went well for a very long time, and on this, Israel has called their bluff to a certain extent. And then there's, yeah, you're right. that they don't want a direct conflict. And one of the reasons for that is because it would be costly for them. But the other reason, like I said, is I don't think they have the goods. I don't think they can harm Israel through direct attacks in the same way. They've invested just on a very simple level, they've invested most of their money in these proxies. That's been most of what they put the money in. A lot of their military stuff is for show, much more than the proxy stuff. Then you've got something else that people aren't talking about much, but it's very important. There's a political element in Iran too. You have the reform wing in Iran is now the strongest it's been in a very long time. They won an election. They have a reform president now, and that president has been saying for a while, like most reform politicians in Iran do, we've been spending too much money on fighting Israel. We've been spending too much money on Hezbollah and the proxies. And now that these proxies are falling apart, that gives them a lot of ammunition. And the reform wing has the ear of Khamenei, not in the sense that he supports them, but in the sense that he's not sure that they don't have some good points. He's not sure that when if and when Harris wins, or even if Trump wins, their best path forward isn't to try to reach another deal. In order to use money to shore up their regime instead of using their money against Israel or on the nuclear program or facing sanctions. I don't think Iran is really clear on which direction they want to go in the future. I think we have this deterministic way of looking at Iran as if they're a purely evil entity. Not you, but a lot of Israelis, a lot of people. Purely evil entity that wants nothing other than to destroy Israel, and nothing else matters to them. But of course, that's not true. They certainly are evil. I mean, the things they do are evil. There's no question about that. But self-preservation is more important to them than destroying Israel. I fully believe that for any political actor, Iran or anyone else. And second of all, I don't think that they are investing all that money really to destroy Israel. I think that they're investing all that money in order to have as much power in the Middle East as possible, power and influence. So one of the things they've been doing is they took advantage of the fact that the Sunni Arabs are sick of fighting Israel. And that's been clear since 1973 to an increasing extent. And they've been going, okay, we're going to step in and fight for them. We're the ones who really, hate Israel. We're the ones who really hate the West. We're not like the Sunni sellouts, and that's given them a lot of power. And I think furthering their political regional ambitions and increasing their ability to survive as a regime is the main motive there, not destroying Israel. They've done very little to destroy. I mean, they would if they could, but they haven't had a lot of progress towards destroying Israel. They've had a lot of progress towards increasing their influence in Sunni states. Right. When they're talking about Syria, we're talking about Lebanon, we're talking about Yemen, talking about Iraq, which is not a Sunni state, but used to be a Sunni-run state. That's where they've had success, and that's not a coincidence. That's what their focus has been. And if they feel like what they're doing doesn't further their regional and domestic goals, then they'll move towards a deal. They moved to a deal before because they thought that it was good for them. So paradoxically, Israel, by escalating, might be moderating Iranian foreign policy.
Interesting. Honestly, this all, even though I feel like we are inching closer to a world war, it seems like we're also inching potentially closer to peace in the Middle East. Because if we, my opinion on Israel-Palestine, as hard as it seems to solve, if we could have a strong coalition of Middle Eastern countries that put pressure on the Palestinians and on Israel to agree to recognize each other's right to exist and statehood, that I feel like that might be the only way we get this thing done. And it seems like Iran and Hezbollah are kind of getting in the way of having that unified Middle East, putting on that pressure. So, okay, I guess.
Yeah. The defeat of Iran would be a massive move towards peace, at least potentially. There's so many other obstacles. But basically, if it hadn't been for Iran in the 1990s, there's a good chance that we'd have peace now, or at least be in much better shape, because it was Iran that funded all those Hamas attacks that brought about the rise of Netanyahu, that brought about the Second Intifada, Israel had its part too with the settlements, so I don't know what would have happened without that. But there's a good chance that public opinion would have gone more to the left as it was going in the 1990s without that. Iran has served as a spoiler intentionally in the peace process for a very long time. Some people even say October 7th was their attempt to spoil normalization with Saudi Arabia. I don't buy that because I don't think there was going to be normalization with Saudi Arabia, but maybe. And yeah, what Iran wants is as little harmony between Israel, the United States, and the Sunni states as possible, to try to split that potential alliance up as much as possible. And yeah, that's one of the main reasons that Hamas and Hezbollah exist.
Real quick, just whoever's tuning in for the first time on YouTube, the name of this channel is not Sugar Star. We had a little problem where someone had access to my page and their daughter actually changed the name to Sugar Star, and I can't change it back for 2 weeks. So this is not Sugar Star. Well, it is for now, but the name is Sulha, which means to reconcile. It's a word. It's an Arabic word for reconciliation, which that's the goal of this channel, bringing people together for respectful conversations, primarily Israelis and Palestinians. If you're new, you can subscribe, and you should also check out Shaiel's channel and page. I'm going to drop a link again to your page. Interesting. On Twitter, I just got added to a list called Jewy. Is that philo-Semitic or anti-Semitic? I'm not sure.
Who even knows anymore?
Who even knows? Okay, well, there we go. Let's see what else. How much more time do you have? Well, I guess you're in Hollywood, so it's not too late, right? What's your time like?
I have like 10 more minutes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, there's one thing that seeing the weakening of Hezbollah on one hand excites me. On the other hand, I don't know how much it moves the needle. For each guy you kill, one person, a new person's there to replace him. But on the other hand, I struggle with. And I'm saying this as an Israeli, I struggle with a decisive Israeli victory because I think Israeli arrogance is extremely dangerous. I think it's what led to October 7th. And I think what makes us feel like we don't need to achieve peace and we could just maintain the status quo. So as much as I want de-escalation and I want this cycle of violence to end, I don't want it to end with just increased Israeli arrogance, because I think actually our survival depends on us being humbled and understanding that we need to find a way towards peace. Do you have a similar concern?
I do. Let me make a caveat first that I don't think that Israel is necessarily the main obstacle to peace right now. Certainly not the only obstacle to peace right now. But yes, Israeli has traditionally had some serious contribution to bad outcomes in the Middle East. Henry Kissinger probably said it best when he said that when Israel's weak, it feels like it's too weak to make concessions, and when Israel's strong, it feels like it's too strong to make concessions.
I think the Arab nations feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when Israel's weak, it's like, oh, we're insecure, we can't make peace now. And then when it's too strong, like, what do we need to make peace for? We could just blow everyone away, and that comes from insecurity. That's when people lack self-confidence, they often think they're like the best-looking person in the world one day, the worst-looking person in the world the next day. Israel's a bit like that. They lack confidence in, and I include myself in this. We lack confidence in our ability to survive, because as Jewish people, we are always concerned about our survival. So peace is always seen as too much of a risk. And when Israel does too well, then, why don't we just escalate and solve the problems? But you can't blow everyone up. You can't defeat the entire Middle East. I'm seeing memes and tweets and things about, taking over Lebanon with Israeli flags, and people really need to chill out. Israeli military is phenomenally good right now at what it's doing, but that doesn't mean that it can defeat everyone and everything in every circumstance. Ultimately, this advantage that we have needs to be translated into diplomatic achievements. And that doesn't mean you have to do it today. We had an opportunity for a certain kind of ceasefire a few months ago. We missed that. Now we might have an opportunity for something better because Israel has the upper hand again. But it's important that this time we don't miss it. It's important that Israel stick the landing. Quite what that looks like, I'm not sure. But it involves pressing Israel's advantage without over-pressing it. It involves prudence. And it involves having a strategy of what it is that you're trying to achieve with every attack. And that's been very much missing. If you look at Israel's strategy in this war, it's been 1 out of 10, and its tactics, at least recently, have been 10 out of 10. You couldn't have more of a mismatch, of a mismatch there. And
Right.
I find that usually it's better to have good strategy and bad tactics than the other way around. And so Israel might find itself in a place where a lot of others have been when they've had too much victory without strategic vision, of biting off too much and being unable to chew. Overstretch and those sorts of things. A position where you're occupying a lot of people you don't know what to do with. You lose the support of your allies, and therefore you have trouble keeping up your military and your supplies. And then what? So.
Right.
And I don't want to say that Israel right now is just acting completely unrestrained and irresponsible and all that. There's signs of that, but that's not all I'm seeing. Like take the operation in Lebanon. Israel went in very carefully, first line of villages, then withdrew. That's not only is that smart, it's essential, right? If you want people to go back and move back to northern Israel, you got to do that. You can't just leave Hezbollah standing there on the fence. The trouble is, where do you stop, right? You got that first row of villages, then the second row, then the third row, then the fourth row. When do you end up in Damascus? When you're in Damascus, when's that not enough? You need to go further north. Beirut. Damascus maybe too. So you need to avoid that mission creep. I think the IDF is aware of that. I don't trust the political echelons all that much, because now that Netanyahu has seen that some of these military escalations are improving his popularity, he could become addicted to them. He used to be so risk averse. Now all these big risks are paying off. So where does that stop? So it's difficult to separate where the use of power here is prudent and in the national interest, and where it's not. My feeling is we're still at the point where what Israel is doing is smart, and making Hezbollah not pay as much as humbling it to this extent where it has real strategic implications potentially is smart. I just hope that they know where to stop.
And yeah, you bring up a good point, that now that Netanyahu's polling numbers are up, it's unclear if he really will know where to stop.
That's right.
He has no reason to take risks when he's popular and in the lead, but when he's not popular, like after October 7th, we're sure, okay, Netanyahu is done. In his mind, he wants to maintain this as long as he needs to until he's the one again. And he's inching closer to that point, but the only way he could get there is by taking these risks. So what you recently shared, you want to give the landscape of before you wrap it up, the landscape of the recent polling? And
oh yeah, well, the polling has been quite fascinating, because you would think that after Nasrallah, Netanyahu would get some kind of very big bump. I think it's easily the most long-awaited assassination in Israeli history. I've seen a lot of assassinations people were very happy about, from Sheikh Yassin and Def and whatever, but this one takes the cake. This guy's been around since '92. He's been the Antichrist for Israel, and yet the effect on the polling was minimal. Channel 14 immediately came in and said, "Oh, Netanyahu won," but Channel 14 is very problematic. Channel 12 had a poll where we saw Netanyahu went up by 3 mandates, which is good for him. But those 3 mandates came from Ben Gvir. So what that shows is that the people who are really excited about this were the hardcore right-wingers who, sometimes think that Netanyahu is too weak-kneed and not aggressive enough. Now they're like, oh, he's being very aggressive. I'll vote for him instead of Ben Gvir. Ben Gvir crashed down to 6.
That's good news.
That's good news. He's been up to 11, 12, and then Smotrich is under 0, but he's been there for a while. And then, but Netanyahu did have some very good news there. That wasn't it, but he did have some very good news there. Bennett is losing some steam. It looked like he was going to beat Netanyahu if he ran, and now if he ran, he would get a little bit less. And just as importantly, when you do who's the most suited to be prime minister, Netanyahu's doing a lot better than he did before. He's beating Gantz handily. That's been true since Gantz left the government. Before that, Gantz was beating him.
Okay.
He's beating Lapid handily, which he always has, but he's beating him even more. And Bennett, who's been way ahead of him, was only ahead of him by a hair. So what this assassination has done, and this might be long-term unless the tables start turning strategically, is it's enforced that sense that a lot of Israelis have that, yeah, Netanyahu is terrible in so many ways, but he's the best we have, and he knows how to handle security matters at the end of the day, right? There's very few people in Israel who are enthusiastic about Netanyahu. He's been around for a long time. People are really sick of him. But the reason he wins elections is because there's a lot of people who think we don't really have anything better. I don't trust anyone else to be fighting Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and handling American pressure. There's a lot of people who feel that way. And because Netanyahu is very good at certain things, I mean, he's a political and diplomatic genius when he wants to be. So this has strengthened that feeling that he's more capable than anyone else. And that's very good news for him. But as far as electoral politics are concerned, the blocks haven't changed. Most Israelis still don't want this government and this coalition. And assassinations aren't going to change that.
So if there's elections tomorrow, Netanyahu very well may get the most votes, but won't have a coalition to form a government, and then the anti-Netanyahu bloc will have an opportunity, in which case we would see either Gantz or Bennett as prime ministers.
Right. If Bennett doesn't run, the anti-Netanyahu bloc would also have a very difficult time putting together a government, but maybe they could. If Bennett does run, they'd have a very easy time putting together a bloc. And that's most likely what's going to happen. I think Bennett's going to run. He won't. I don't know how many mandates he'll get, but enough to be kingmaker. Probably, maybe not the most of anyone, but enough to be kingmaker, and then form a coalition, which includes the Haredi parties and includes Gantz and possibly a post-Netanyahu Likud. Who knows? Yeah, because I think the one of the problems that Netanyahu's having right now for the future is that he's lost his the solidity of his alliance with the Haredi parties is lost. Not that they are leaving the coalition today, but they've gotten so little out of this government. They've never gotten so little out of a government ever. This government has screwed them with the draft laws.
Right.
And I think that makes them free agents in the future, or more free agents than they used to be. They're not going to be married to Netanyahu because Netanyahu hasn't delivered. At the end of the day, their job is not to help Netanyahu. Their job is to deliver for their constituency. And they haven't. And if they can come to good terms with Bennett, or they can come to good terms with Gantz, and they'll sell the farm to get a stable government, who wouldn't? Right. Maybe Lapid wouldn't, I don't know, but the others would. Then they will. And that's why I think there's a good chance that after elections, Netanyahu loses. But, whenever you write off Netanyahu, he comes blazing back. So
we've written him off at least a half dozen times at this point, and here he is.
More than that, yeah.
10th time's the charm, as they say.
10th
time's the charm. Awesome, Shaiel. Thank you so much. If there's any final thoughts you want to leave us with, happy to hear. I'll be back in LA in a week, so I'll be in touch with you.
Okay. Well, I'll see you then. Thank you so much for having me, and keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you, Shaiel. Thanks for joining us. Talk soon.
Bye.
Awesome. So that was Shaiel. I dropped a link for anybody who wants to follow him. He also has an awesome YouTube channel where he does commentary on the conflict. So I'm going to take a few more comments and some final thoughts, and then we're going to wrap it up. Evan Magor goes, but Adar, you told me to call you sugar in private. Well, Evan, if I told you that in private, how are you going to come on here and publicly tell everyone? You've really broken trust. I'm disappointed. Super Kripke goes, Israel is the only obstacle towards peace. So I have a challenge for you, Super. Now, if you watch this channel, you know I'm very critical of Israel, and I often propose things Israel can do to bring us closer to peace. And there's plenty, plenty. Anybody who says Israel's done all they can has no idea what they're talking about. Okay, let's start with that. But, and this is a big but, I challenge you and anyone else who thinks that Israel is the only obstacle towards peace to propose a plan as to what Israel can do to unilaterally achieve peace in a way that will keep Jews on the land safe. What can Israel do to unilaterally achieve peace on the land that will keep Jews safe? That's the challenge. And honestly, if you could propose something, I'm happy to present it here on stream for public review. But I've thought deeply on this. It requires both sides to be involved in the peace process. There's no unilateral. There's unilateral steps each side can take, but to actually solve the conflict, you'll see that there's more than one obstacle. One of them is Israel, the other isn't, or the others aren't. Let's see. I think that might be it. Super also said Palestine has recognized Israel's statehood since also. Yeah, you know that is true. That's worth mentioning. A lot of people don't know that the PA recognized Israel's right to exist in 1989. Israel has never recognized Palestine. That is true. That said, it's not that's great, right? It's important, but the PA is not so popular amongst Palestinians today. Hamas is much more popular, and they have not recognized Israel's right to exist. So we currently have, I believe it's 23 or 4 as of the last poll percent of Palestinians believe support a two-state solution. Almost all of the rest want one state from the river to sea that is Palestinian, not a secular binational state as many in the West would suggest, but a Palestinian state for Palestinians that has some Islamic nature to it. That's what the majority of Palestinians currently support. And I can understand how, given their conditions, given the history of the conflict, they've reached that conclusion, but that's not an acceptable solution, right? So we're going to need to find some other solutions. Fafo goes, do you think that it's possible for the Palestinians to solve the conflict unilaterally? So actually, I do, but it's just not going to be favorable to them, right? So because the Palestinians are on the weaker end of things, call it the losing side, they really just need to surrender, and then the conflict could end, right? That's where, like the quote, if the Arabs lay down their weapons, there will be no war. If Israel lays down their weapons, there'll be no Israel. There's truth to that, but is it a realistic expectation for just surrendering and not fighting for some amount of dignity and some better outcome than what you currently have? So on one hand, yeah, that there is a unilateral path. I just don't think it's a realistic expectation. I don't think if we Jews were in Palestinian shoes, we would just give up. I think we would continue to fight. From the Palestinian perspective, you know, we came here as colonizers, we took their land, and we've continuously increased our land, the size of our land for even call it 100+ years. So, yeah, the conflict could end if Palestinians surrender, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee Palestinian statehood. Jerusalem definitely won't be the capital. There won't be a right of return. Well, maybe there could be to a future Palestinian state, but not to anywhere in Israel proper. Palestinians won't control their border. They won't have military, right? So they're not going to get a great deal, but the conflict would end. And maybe over time they could work towards statehood. And honestly, if this is controversial, but if Palestinians were entirely prideless people, if they had no pride and honor didn't matter to them, then that would probably be the path of least resistance and the easiest way to improve their lives, and then over time work towards building a state. But I don't look at things in terms of, like, that's just not realistic. Palestinians, truth is, have a lot of honor and pride. That's a fact. Saying they shouldn't doesn't change that, right? We could wish all day that the people we're in conflict with are different, right? Palestinians wish Israelis were very different. Well, we could keep wishing. That doesn't change the fact. In order to solve a conflict, we need to understand who are the people in conflict. What are their desires? What drives them? What are their aspirations, right? If you don't have a realistic understanding and acceptance of who you're in conflict with, you stand no chance to solve the conflict. So yeah, there's a path, but it's not realistic. So it's not, I don't really expect that. I generally don't, I don't blame humans for acting as humans would act. Um, People just respond to incentives and, pretty innate motivations. We're all more alike than we are different. So I try to not blame us for I don't blame humans for humaning. Um, So Fahed Abu On, our friend from Gaza, is saying, I've witnessed dozens of assassinations throughout my life, starting from Yassin in 2004, but we end up with October 7th and on the brink of a regional war. Why would you think this is successful, even smart strategy? I mean, I actually don't disagree. I think assassinations give a good moral victory, but generally speaking, they're very easy to replace these people. Um, So it's unclear if it actually moves the needle in a positive direction. It certainly risks escalation, but does it actually change the reality on the ground? I haven't been convinced. Garefoot goes, although it's not as overt as in the Palestinian case, Jewish sense of collective pride has played a bigger role than people expect. Yeah, I need to think about that, but we definitely have pride. It just manifests differently. I normally think for us, like the main driving factor is this deep fear and fight for self-preservation, and even a fear at some times is irrational fear, right, resulting in trauma. Pride plays into it, but when I look at the Palestinian side, it feels a lot more honor based. But I'm definitely happy to hear your argument on this. And it's obviously certainly not as simple as just summing it up to one emotion or one quality. The very idea of a Jewish army came from this perspective. Hebrew labor during the Mandate time and the entire Rav Kook settlement movement is deeply centered on pride. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But is that a pride that makes us unwilling to compromise? I need to think about that. But certainly, the revival of Zionism, part of the way we revived this movement was through Jewish pride, was from Jews, instead of Jews being like these weak oppressed people, by us being strong. We work the land, we're strong, we're sexy. That was part of how we uh, put energy into the Zionist movement. Anyways, I'm gonna sign off. Again, if you're new, we do live streams every week, connecting between people in conflict. We focus on Israelis and Palestinians. But we also sometimes have anti-Semites on, and yeah, good stuff happening all around. Well, sorry, I'm talking about in my life. A lot of exciting things happening. There's not good stuff happening all around in the Middle East, right? There's some concerning things, but I gave a little hint to maybe I let something out before I was gonna make an official announcement, but by saying good things happening all around, what am I referring to? So I recently co-founded a new company with Adam Bosbecker, who's an awesome guy, and he's actually the first patron this channel ever had. He's the mastermind behind this project, but we are building an app that connects people based on an area of disagreement. And then there's an AI facilitator helping these people speak for longer, understand each other better, and hopefully find solutions to the problems we face. We haven't fully agreed on the name yet, but it looks like we're leaning towards head on, right? Take this issue head on. I see Matthew Strelitz in the comments, who is also a friend through this channel, who very well may join us and be our ad guru. He's the best ads guy I know. So Matthew, shout out to you. Excited to work with you on this project. Yeah. So I was full time at my other company, Grateful Drafts. I moved to an advisory position because this was an opportunity I could not turn down. We believe we have found a way to scale contentious conversations in a way that can truly have an impact in this world. So I am hyped, to say the least. Now we're building a team, right, of interns, of employees, of partners. We're looking for investors, and we're looking for users. So if this intrigues anybody here, and anybody wants to be involved in whatever capacity, you want to help out, you want to invest, you want to use it, reach out to me, and we'll talk about it. You can DM me. You can find all my information in the description, or you could email me, which I will drop an email in the chat, and we will make. I'm going to do a live stream probably this week with Adam, my co-founder, to talk more about this. But very exciting stuff. We need this now more than ever before. So that's what we're working on. Anyways, thank you all. Stay safe wherever in the world you are. And I will see you later this week for another live stream. Sending love.